Hi all, this video covers our MCS cruise from Buenos Aires to Piraeus, Greece. It was a 23-night cruise, and because it was across the Atlantic, there were quite a few sea days. The map you're looking at is from our Garmin GPS unit because we dropped a pin each day. I'm going to start with expenses because it gives you a sense of the schedule of the cruise, and I could mention a couple things that you might want to bear in mind as you're looking at the pictures. So I do want to start by pointing out that when we booked the cruise, we paid $2,743. Cruises charge a per night, per person service fee. In the past, and including on this cruise, we've opted out of one of the per person, per night service fees because we don't get our room cleaned most days, and we eat at the buffet a lot more than other people, so we don't take advantage of the sit-down restaurants as often as other people do. So we feel like the service fees tend to be a bit excessive for the amount of service that we use. I'll also point out the Solace charge. When we started out at our adventures in November, we got a Solace which allows us to connect to cell phone signals and get Wi-Fi anywhere in the world. And it does only work when you are in port and have cell phone signals, but we did end up using it a few times here because a lot of the ports did not have Wi-Fi, or at least decent Wi-Fi. When in ports, we did try to experience some of the local food and drinks, either through sitting down at a cafe or most often at the grocery stores, because we were headed to Europe, which is quite a bit more expensive than South America. The last thing I'll say is we did not book trips through the cruise line. This ended up being a really good thing because our table mates, we had seated dinners, were routinely getting shafted on their tours. Tours they booked were canceled or rearranged so that they weren't exactly what they expected. The big thing that we did on this trip was Pompeii. I've wanted to go to Pompeii for years, so we made sure to plan that ahead and have a really great day in Pompeii. You'll see most of our pictures come from Pompeii. It ended up being $146 a night on average, which is amazing for a cruise. We did complain quite a bit while we were on the cruise. Things weren't up to our expectations, but looking back, for the cost, it was actually a really good deal. This is our cabin. We had some AC problems in our cabin and complained about it for 3 days in a row. They finally moved us and gave us a balcony cabin, which only ended up helping because we got far enough north that we got some cooler weather. So leaving that balcony door open was able to cool us down. The public spaces of the cruise felt quite cramped compared to other cruises that we've been on, but that might have been because about 75% of the passengers were Argentinian, who are a very boisterous lot, and so they tend to really make their presence known in public spaces. We also, the food was not always exactly what we liked, although unfortunately the desserts were amazing. So we did overindulge in desserts compared to what we would have done probably otherwise. The last complaint that I'll mention is that the TV did not work, and we were told, well, it's because we're out of port and the signal doesn't connect really well. And I kind of sort of thought, that's sort of the point of cruise ships, is to be out of port. So that did not seem like a good excuse to me. I was told this is routine. It happens on this ship every single time. And it's just something that, at least on this particular ship, we were MSC Musica. You just need to go into it knowing you're not really going to get TV. Here we're just working through some slides. This is actually interesting. This is a public library we found in Tenerife. We got to get a Wi-Fi signal and enjoy this beautiful courtyard while we got some free internet instead of having to use our Solace. In this town, we also got some baguettes and some spreads for them, and that was our groceries that allowed us to enjoy some of the local tastes. Morocco, we spent walking around, enjoying the architecture. We were there during Ramadan, so there were no restaurants open. You didn't see any people walking around eating or drinking because they were all fasting during the daylight hours. So we did not also eat or drink. We just enjoyed our walk and then headed back to eat a meal on the ship. This is Mallorca. We spent much of our afternoon in Mallorca wandering around the grounds of Belvedere Castle, a castle built in 1311. This is an overview of the city. You can see our ship down there in the harbor, After we finished at the castle site, we wandered around town for a bit. We found this amazing grocery store with these hanging hams, and there at the bottom of the picture you can see the machine where you could have them slice off pieces for you, and also tons of seafood available. This is a house that we saw for sale. We jokingly said that's going to be our new house. And here's a port. We thought it was wonderful, the contrast of the really ancient looking walkways and cobblestone pathways and the really modern boats. And this was a beautiful shot we took as we were leaving Majorca. Civitavecchia, if I said that right, is the port for Rome. So if you did excursions from the ship, they would have taken you into Rome. We did Rome years ago, so we just walked around the port and enjoyed that. We were actually in port at the same time as 3 other cruise ships, so there were a lot of people there that day. Enjoyed a beautiful sunset. And next up is Pompeii, which was what I was looking forward to. So we set up our time so that we took a bus on our own off to Pompeii from Naples, which is where the ship docked at. We unfortunately missed a previous bus by just a few minutes because it took longer to get off the ship than we expected, so it ended up costing us an entire hour of time at Pompeii. I was disappointed in that, but looking at the site, we know we're going to have to go back to see more of it anyways. So just a good excuse to go spend more time. Plus, I also just read an article that another site nearby has also some really amazing stuff that was preserved by the volcanic ash. So now there's 2 really good reasons to go back to Pompeii. Here we have some of the decorative items that were collected during the excavation and put into a little museum room. This is one of the theaters at Pompeii. And this is the shops and restaurants in the district right outside of the theaters. There's actually multiple arenas right in the same area of Pompeii. This used to be a cafe-style restaurant. They would have pre-prepared dishes in those little jars. You would sort of go in and point out what you wanted. They actually have a newly opened excavation where they found pictures of the foods that were served in the cafe. So they could literally, you could point to the picture and tell them what you wanted to order. That unfortunately was not open the day that we went until after we had to leave to get back to the ship. So we weren't able to see that specific site, but we were super excited at what we did to see, get to see. What you're looking at now are some of the residences, a little bit farther out past the stores and restaurants around the theater district. Some of these did still have restaurants or shops up front, but these were a little bit farther back, the residential areas of the residents of Pompeii. Seeing these amazing paintings and floor mosaics that were preserved and survived this whole time being protected by the ash was absolutely amazing. And we again ended up with a gorgeous day. So we had beautiful blue skies the whole time that we were there. Here's a slightly better preserved example of a restaurant with those serving dishes. And here's one of the rooms that's really beautifully painted and preserved. In past videos, Stuart had been using filters on some of the pictures. I thought it was important that you guys saw the colors as we did, so I asked him not to do this. So all of these pictures are unretouched. There's us standing with the viewpoint of one of the alleyways. This is the Forum of Pompeii, so where people would gather, including having political discussions or maybe possibly protests. And this is a beautiful view of Mount Vesuvius as our ship was leaving dock that day. And then we ended in Piraeus, Greece. We had a few days to recover before we hopped on our next cruise, which will be covered in the next video.